Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. My name is Ross Benjamin, host of the show. And like every Tuesday, I am joined by my cohorts, Mr. Jesse Shule and Mr. Sean Higgs, all three of us of gamblersWORLD.net. By the way, Gamblers World is our sponsor, folks. And without further ado, Mr. Higgs, how are you?
Well, listen, let's just get to it here. I am 500 on the NFL season, about the same in college football. Jesse, just get through. Jesse, just say how you did this weekend and move on to Ross, because Ross is freaking. I'm surprised we could see him and he's not burning alive in his chair.
Let's give him the Wayne's World treatment. We're not worthy.
I mean, are you
We're
kidding
not
me?
worthy.
Yeah. Jesse, how are you, man?
I survived the weekend, but Monday Night Football was it was pretty ugly last night. An ugly injury, and it was a bit of a downer. But I'm really excited to talk about college football today, and I'm really excited about a decent start to the college football season for me.
Yeah, Jesse, it's college football. The matchups were sort of lackluster last week, as we mentioned on the show. But this week we have some big matchups. So Sean's going to be looking at Ohio State and Notre Dame, arguably the best matchup on the board or the most appealing to the national audience. That's for sure.
Hold on a second, Ross. We just bowed down to you. Can you tell the folks how you did this weekend?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So they're like, why? What was that all about?
On last Tuesday's show, I had indicated at that time that I was 2-4 in week 1 in the NFL, and I went 2-3 in college football that week, and I was very perturbed with myself. And when I said I was going to kick ass, I got bawled out by Sean because for using vulgarity in his mind, and rightfully
No, for angering the gambling gods, Ross.
Yeah, well, I said I was going to kick ass, and that's exactly what I did. So I hope you would forgive me for using that term, Sean. But I went 12-0 with my football picks last week.
I don't forgive you for not sharing.
7-0 in college football, 5-0 in the NFL. It was just a tremendous week. It's what we all dream of professional sports handicappers, and the key now is to keep it going. Since last Tuesday, including my baseball picks, I'm 15-1, folks. You can find me at gamblersWORLD.net. You can get annual packages, not only for myself, but from Jesse and Sean, proven winners in both college football and the NFL. And Jesse told you he's coming off a good start in college football. Sean, 64% in the NFL last year, $5.99 for an NFL annual package right through the Super Bowl, $5.99 for a college football package, annual package right through the college football championship game. And if you combine the two together, you could save yourself around $200. NFL college football combined annual package, $8.99 over at gamblersworld.net. And folks, our single game and multi-game daily packages and all subscription plans of 30 days or less, we guarantee that if you don't make a profit, we'll credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price. Us 7 other great handicappers at that site as well, world-class handicappers, and I can say that with the utmost confidence. All right, last week, like I said, guys, not a lot to talk about in college football in terms of what we saw in the field, unless something jumped out to one of you. Let's start with you, Jesse. Anything in college football that really you were surprised by? Or
how much time do you got, Ross? I mean, there was a ton of storylines, but I guess the number one storyline is Alabama. They don't have a quarterback. They're calling for Nick Saban's head. They barely beat South Florida. Now everybody thinks Ole Miss is going to go into Tuscaloosa and run them over. I guess we're going to talk about that tomorrow, so I won't dwell on it too much. But I got to say that's something that interests me tremendously.
Yeah, and the quarterback situation at Alabama. I remember last year, and I believe I did a show with you guys, and at that time, Notre Dame was torn on who they were going to use at quarterback. And I had indicated at that time that I didn't understand a football traditional powerhouse like Notre Dame, how they've gone years without that really standout quarterback that's, a top 5 quarterback in college football. And Tyler Buckner was there at the time. And he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, as I recall. And I criticized him. And one guy from the Notre Dame faithful, he must have went to high school with Tyler Buckner because he was all over me for criticizing him. Well, this guy, he went to Alabama in the transfer portal. And even when I saw that, Sean, I scratched my head. And I said, what is Saban thinking? This guy couldn't do it with Notre Dame. Why is he going to? What makes him think that he's going to come in and step up and be an impact quarterback at Alabama, especially with all the NFL-type quarterbacks that Alabama's put out over the last decade or so? And sure enough, he comes in and not very good. They used the third-string quarterback, not very good. And now they're going back to Milrose at quarterback. So what say you, Sean?
Well, it's just like my little leeway into the Notre Dame-Ohio State game? Or are we just talking –
no, let's just talk about that particular subject matter and the SEC in general.
Listen, I mean, Notre Dame, you go there to Alabama. I think Alabama has a little more athletic and NFL-type caliber players than Notre Dame. Let's be honest. I mean, Notre Dame, we've seen them in the playoffs against the Clemsons in Alabama, and they're losing by 35 points. It's not even close. So you think, all right, he's still a 5-star recruit. Let's bring him into a program that has NFL talent all around, NFL coaching abilities, like coach you up. How bad could it be? But, I guess you're so spoiled at seeing a team like Alabama or even like an Ohio State or whoever, USC. A quarterback comes in and just kind of gets in the system and just chalks up numbers, right? We see this like Oklahoma. But this year you see struggling out of the Alabama, all the quarterbacks really. But, you're talking – they're learning a new, coordinator, and guys are still young. Buckner's coming to a new system. It's just something you don't see out of the program. So it's the sky is falling.
Wait,
the sky
stop.
Is falling.
Stop. Buckner's not coming into a new system. Tommy Rees is his offensive coordinator. He was his offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. Wow. He stunk with Tommy Rees there. He stinks with Tommy Rees now. Go ahead.
All right. I didn't know that. I was like, I didn't know Tommy Rees.
Well, that's okay. That's why I brought it to your attention.
Well, that could be why Alabama's a little slow out of the gate. I mean, he's not a good coordinator. How about we'll start right there then? I mean, I look at it as you bring in, I don't care who it is, as a freshman or a sophomore getting new starts, you're learning on the fly no matter how good you are. Yeah. And other teams are going to catch up with you with the no money. We've seen that. We've seen Georgia possibly pass them. LSU, talent-wise, is right there with them, giving them a battle. I mean, A&M should be there, but they're not. I mean, this is not 8 years ago or 5 years ago for Alabama. And Jesse said, he thinks Saban's got his foot out the door. I kind of agree with him on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he's doing television once a week, that's something that I couldn't imagine him doing 6-7 years ago or any time prior to this.
How about that?
Last year. I mean, it seems like he does have his foot halfway out the door, and this might be his last year. We'll see.
Yeah, and then you said he was doing a Pat McAfee show once a week, right? Is that what you alluded to, Jesse? And Pat McAfee's a very entertaining gentleman. Let's put it at that. He's charismatic. He's a little off the wall at times, and it just doesn't seem like a good fit for Saban. At the end of the day, Pat McAfee draws a huge audience, and you're right, Jesse. Got to stop and think about it. How much more does Saban have to prove at the college football level?
Yep.
And now he gets on a show once a week with a guy that seems like he's the polar opposite of him from a personality standpoint, but he draws a large audience. So it's like he's auditioning for TV going forward. So we'll see what transpires there. Let's get to the meat and potatoes here. Ohio State and Notre Dame. Okay, this is a game that a lot of the nation's going to watch on Saturday evening, including myself. I'm very interested in it. And boy, oh boy, Sam Hartman's been real good for Notre Dame. And I think he's a major difference. Again, Sam Hartman didn't have great athletes at Wake Forest either, like in Alabama or some of the SEC schools or some of the Big Ten top schools like Ohio State. However, he produced greatly at Wake Forest. I mean, he had his games where he had bad games just like anybody else. But at the end of the day, this guy's been lights out. Now, granted, like you guys touched upon, he hasn't played anybody yet. Okay. Now he's going to go up against a Buckeyes defense that, say what you will about Western Kentucky, but they seem to score on everybody, and they held them to 10 points last week. And these Ohio State wide receivers are NFL caliber once again, so Marvin Harrison Jr. is just unbelievable. So again, Sean, I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but Ohio State right now is a 3.5-point road favorite. Earlier this week on Sunday night, when I looked, they were only 3. They're up to 3.5. And the total in this contest is 54.5. What do you got for us here?
Yeah. Well, let's just start with what you're saying about Harwell putting up good numbers, and McCord starting to put up numbers here after a slow little start, 23-7 over Indiana. You mentioned the receivers.
Yeah.
How about an over here, 54.5? I part of me wants to take Ohio State because, I mean, Hartman, you mentioned his Wake Forest days, and again, the talent isn't there. He was 7-5 his last year there, 10-3, 4-4. But again, it's a little step down here from Notre Dame. You mentioned their coordinators down in Alabama, and you see how they've kind of struggled a little bit offensively down there. I'm expecting to see points. I mean, 42-3 over Navy. What is that about? 56 against who? Tennessee State. All right. Pad your stats. As much as I said, the Irish lose to like good teams, the Clemsons, the Alabamas, and they had beat USC. They have beaten Michigan a couple years ago. So I expect points, and I'm not as high as the Irish guy as other people are. This is a national championship game for both these teams. Let's be honest. You lose here, and you're in trouble. Ohio State has Michigan.
Game. Yeah.
You got Michigan. I think Notre Dame always schedules USC. So you're in trouble here. Somebody might have 2 losses. You're out of the playoffs, as a non-conference kind of team. Irish need a big win. And back to the over here, as I mentioned, for McCord, slow out of the gate, getting a little better. And I'm not sold on the Irish defense. I mean, how are we? Yeah, okay. So you saw a low-scoring game against. You put 23 points versus Indiana. Here we go. It's a freshman kid coming in or second year, however, getting into the system. Yeah, I'm not a huge Ryan Day fan, but the guy wins. The team wins. They usually have more talent, and when they don't have talent, it's a shootout. So how isn't this game in the 60s, like a 37-34? I remember, I think last year we did the show, and they opened up. I'm like, man, give me Ohio State here to run over this Notre Dame team. I thought they'd cover like a 14 or whatever it was because of the Notre Dame quarterback. I just didn't like the offense. And it was a slow, plodding disaster in week 1. Well, this isn't a week 0 type game. This is a week 3 type game. And you have one really established quarterback, another guy who's got superstars around him or NFL type guys around him. Give me the over.
Yeah, Notre Dame and Ohio State over 54.5 for Sean Higgs. Can't disagree with him there. I will say, I mean, Ohio State looked lackluster offensively until last week's game against Western Kentucky. I had that game over as part of my packages last week and was very happy with that result. But let's face it, Jesse, Western Kentucky doesn't stop anybody, when they win games, it seems to be these high-scoring affairs, and they were just outclassed and too much athleticism for them. Defensively, Ohio State shut them right down. So I like the Buckeyes' defense a heck of a lot more than I like their offense because I'm not going to be misled by what they did against Western Kentucky last week. Although, like Sean just alluded to, and I touched upon, their wide receivers are NFL caliber right now. Jesse, your thoughts?
I think my best advice is to watch this game as a fan and stay away from betting on it. I'm not going to go to the window myself. If I had to make a pick on it, though, I'll give a lean. I would lean toward the Irish. I mean, like Sean mentioned, they played a relatively close game early last season. That was with Buckner at quarterback or Drew Pine or a combination of the two. Big upgrade with Sam Hartman. And Hartman, he's been around for a while. He's got a full beard. He's a full-grown man. He's hardly a freshman. But the reason I got to stay away from this game as far as putting any serious money on it is we just haven't seen either of these teams tested by their opponents so far. This is going to be the first test. This is where we learn who these teams are. Coming into the season, there was a lot of question marks about Ohio State's offensive line, and Notre Dame might be the first team that's able to expose that a little. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. Ohio State certainly has enough NFL caliber weapons at receiver and running back to put up the points. So yeah, the way I see it unfolding, I think high scoring game, last score wins, should be entertaining to watch. I'd take the 3.5 if I had to take a side.
There you go, Jesse's opinion, but it's not a strong one. He's it's more or less put a gun to my head approach. This is what I would do, but not one he indicates that he's probably going to use or probably won't use. So whatever the case may be, Sean likes the over 54.5 in that game. I was laughing when you were talking because you brought up Drew Pine, another quarterback from Notre Dame last year who transferred to Arizona State, came off the bench last week in Arizona State. Another game. I know this because I watched it. I had Fresno State -3 on the road last week against Arizona State, and they win the game 29-0. And Drew Pine comes off the bench. The Sun Devils turned the ball over 8 times in that game, 8 turnovers. And it's like, Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner to Sam Hartman is a huge difference, folks. So just keep an eye on it. I'm very curious to see how Sam Hartman performs in a huge game at home against one of the historic college football programs in the country and a possible Final Four team at the end of the year. So we'll see. Yep. And like Sean said, until we go to an 18 playoff, next year, these types of games are almost like elimination games. And especially for when you consider Ohio State still got to play Michigan yet later in the year. Notre Dame still, I believe, has Florida State and Clemson on their schedule this year. So they don't exactly have an easy schedule. But in any event, let's go to the next game. Arkansas and LSU, an SEC battle. Jesse, and hopefully you won't pronounce Arkansas as Arkansas and tick off the rest of the Razorbacks fans the way you did a season ago. But LSU right now, -17.5 and 55.5. And it's a Saturday night in Baton Rouge where they say where all visitors go to die.
Ross, real fast. They have USC and Clemson. No Florida State on the schedule.
No Florida State this year. Okay. So USC and Clemson. My mistake there. But in any event, two more teams that are going to contend for the national title. Anyway, maybe not Clemson. No, I'm not sold on Clemson. But again, there'll be a tough game. Anyway, Jesse, look, LSU couldn't have looked any better than they did last week at Mississippi State. I believe you had that game for us, and you were all over LSU in that game. And boy, oh boy, was that a prophetic prediction. And Arkansas jumps out to a 14-0 lead against BYU. And I'm going to cover a little bit of that game in my segment because I got BYU and Kansas. More importantly, what do you think on this contest?
Yeah, no, I nailed that LSU pick, and we had somebody in the comments saying Mississippi State's going to win this one outright. And I said to the guys, you're seeing something I'm not seeing. He says
I you'll see it. It's called being delusional. Anyway,
he says, you'll see. So I hit him back with, I saw what I expected to see. Anyways, that one worked out exactly as planned. High-scoring game. LSU scores 41 points. Arkansas also goes over last week in their loss to BYU, despite the fact that Arkansas dominated statistically in that game. 424 total yards, 281, 21 first downs to 17. They dominated time of possession. Just sloppy, not a very good Arkansas team. So both these teams coming off high-scoring games, I'm going to look at the under 55.5 here. Why? Historical precedents. These two teams tend to play dirty, ugly football, as evidenced by the fact that last year's final score, 13-10, The previous year, 16-13 in overtime. The year before that, 27-24. Arkansas, despite the fact that they were losing for the majority of the game last week, ran the ball more frequently than they threw it. I expect both teams to lean on the run in this game. Different styles than BYU, obviously. And I think under 55.5 is the best look for me.
All right, Arkansas and LSU under 55.5 for Jesse Shule. Boy, Jaden Daniels was awful good last week for LSU, Sean. I think he's something sick, like 30 out of 33 on the road.
Yeah.
It was a tremendous
couple
performance
rushing
by him.
TDs.
Yeah. So again, anything you want to add to what Jesse just said on this contest?
Nah, this one it came out and nothing really kind of jumped on me. I guess you lean LSU, they're playing well, but I don't have any real thought on it. I actually look at the numbers. I mean, I know Jesse makes a point of the way they played to the under, but the way that both teams have played this year and going into last year, maybe in over. But again, I have nothing. Nothing. I'm like Jesse had like last game. He's gotten real no lean. I have zero lean on this one. This would just Some days I walk by with the Sharpie. Here we go. I really have a Sharpie next to my desk. When I look at the schedule, I'm like, I don't like it. I go through them. This is one of them.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with taking a pass on a game, folks. You don't have to play it just because it's on TV, just because it's your team. Bottom line is sometimes taking a pass is like winning, because if you don't have a strong opinion, don't force a play. All right, I'm going to have a small lean on Arkansas here, guys. I just got this feeling it's one of those situations. Jesse brought a good point up, and I'm going to discuss that the BYU matchup against Kansas. Is Arkansas outgained them by a large margin, and they held BYU to less than 300 yards, specifically speaking, and I'll get to this in a second again. But as I recall, let's see here, BYU they were outgained 424 to 281, like Jesse said. So they give up 38 points, but they only gave up 281 yards. So in an overreaction, if you saw LSU last week, they look absolutely dominant. Arkansas loses at home as a 9-point favorite against BYU. This line opened on Sunday night at 18, I believe, and now it's 17.5. I just think this is one of those games where one team steps up to the plate after a poor performance and the other team is not as good as they look last week. They're still a great team, but I think this is a heavy number, especially within the SEC. I like Arkansas as a bad team. I'm going to have a very small lean here on Arkansas plus the 17.5, guys.
All right, Ross, I want to bring this up again. The last 3 years, these two teams, 13-10, 16-13, 27-24. 3 straight games decided by 3 points.
Yeah, more to my point. Thank you for bringing that up, Jesse. It's a pertinent point. Pertinent points, plural. All right, speaking of the BYU at Kansas game, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. Kansas right now is a 9-point favorite in this contest, a total at 55.5. Look, both of these teams are 3-0, but here's the difference when I look inside the numbers here. BYU's 3-0, but they're only plus 8.1 yards per game, okay, over their opponent, while Kansas in their 3-0 start plus 228.3 yards per game. Now, BYU does come off that upset last week, and I had them on my Wise Guy contest, by the way. BYU with a 38-31 win at Arkansas, as Jesse alluded to, as I brought up again, they were outgained in that game by 163 yards, and they gave up 424 yards and still came away with the win. Kansas, on the other hand, they go on the road at Nevada as a 28-point favorite, and they were flattered in a pancake, and they still walked away with a 31-24 win. Again, that was a Kansas team that was playing 9:30 Eastern time, their start at night. Give them a little bit of an excuse there against the Nevada team that, quite frankly, in the first 2 games looked horrible in their Big 12 opener on deck. So I'm going to give them a pass there. And even in that 31-24 win, as opposed to BYU, who was outgained, even though they won by a substantial margin. Kansas outgained Nevada in that game by 178 yards, 441 to 263. BYU's played 2 games now against FBS teams, Arkansas and Sam Houston State. And in those 2 games, they only averaged 269 yards of offense. Kansas, their first 3 games, averaging 37.7 points, 494 yards per game. This is BYU's first ever Big 12 game. Kansas is a very experienced team. This is a team that went 6-7 a year ago, 3-6 in Big 12 play. But you look at some of their losses in the Big 12 last year, they only lost by 7 to TCU, who went to the national championship game. They only lost by 10 at Oklahoma and by 12 at Baylor, and that was a Baylor team that much better than the version we're seeing this year. And then in the bowl game against Arkansas, they lose 55-53. So much better than the 6-7 record they indicated, and they have a ton of starters back from a season ago. And I look at this game as a very heavy number. And what I say by that, folks, is when you look at the comparative records, both 3-0, you look at the fact that BYU far and away has the better football tradition than Kansas. And Kansas is laying 9 points in this game after a lackluster performance against a horrible Nevada team, while BYU coming off that upset in SEC territory. I'm not taking the bait, though. I think this line is where it is for a reason. And I'm going to lay the 9 here with Kansas. I know I'm going to be in the vast minority in this situation, but I like Kansas here, minus the 9 over BYU. Sean?
I'm with you on Kansas. Everything you said. A total flat spot against Nevada, and they still pull out a win. BYU's coming in off a big road upset. Yeah, I'll like 10. And you look at it like 9.5, 10 points. Like, oh, look at this. Kansas is laying that kind of number. No. I'll go Kansas. I'm right with you. Give me Kansas.
BYU plus the 9 after an upset win at Arkansas. Jesse, are you taking the bait or not?
Yeah, this is a sneaky good game, actually. 2 3-0 teams. I do like Kansas. I'm with you guys. Kansas is a team that had some success last year. A lot of people don't believe in them. Kind of like Duke had some success last year. A lot of people don't believe in them. I kind of like them both. And so I don't mind Kansas as the pick here, but the one that I really like is the over. This number looks a little low to me. Neither one of these 2 teams strikes me as a great defensive team or a slow playing team. Both these teams tend to give up their fair share of points. I expect it to be a bit of a shootout, maybe something like 38-27 for Kansas. And the number looks a little too low to me, so my pick would be on the over.
There you go, folks. So our official picks, Kansas minus 9 over BYU for me. Jesse likes the Arkansas and LSU game to go under 55.5. Sean likes the Ohio State and Notre Dame game to go over the total of 54.5. All 3 of those games takes place on Saturday. Looking forward to all 3 matchups as well as several other on Saturday's card. We'll be back tomorrow with Jesse and Sean. We'll be discussing some NFL tomorrow, or college football tomorrow. And
Alabama Ole Miss for me. Can't wait.
Yeah. And I'll be back later today with Paul Bovey and Chip Chirimbus. We'll be discussing some NFL matchups. But before we leave, Jesse, tell the folks a little bit about what's going on with Jesse Shule over at gamblersworld.net.
The NFL's been so far. I did have the Browns last night. Wasn't happy with the way that game played out. I felt I deserved better. Certainly when you talk about outgaining your opponent and still losing, that was the case with Cleveland, and it was pretty upsetting to see what happened to Nick Chubb. But on a more positive note, college football is going well for me. A mixed bag of results with my totals plays. I've been flirting with first half totals as well as full game totals, and for that reason, I'm getting some sort of different results at various sites. But one thing that is remained the same everywhere is 100% perfect with sides with college football so far after 3 weeks. So that's not bad.
Wow, perfect is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, Jesse. That's why they call you Mr. Perfect. Yeah, I mean,
we got to send you that outfit, Ross.
You know what? Speaking of Cleveland, and I don't mean to get off tangent, we'll get right to Sean, but Deshaun Watson, all of a sudden, to me, he looks old. He does not look like the same quarterback I saw when he was with Houston. He was a mobile quarterback. He's been inaccurate on his throws this year. He did play at the end of last year, but he's got to step up for the contract that they signed him for, Sean. Anyway, your thoughts there, maybe, and then also tell the folks what you got going on.
I thought he'd be improving as the season goes on. He played a little bit last year. I like Jesse. I was on Cleveland yesterday. I had under Saint, so I ended up splitting. But yeah, he's. I hope you grab Tennessee. You could have 4.5 early with Tennessee against Cleveland. I mean, that was before the Chubb injury. He's probably going to be down to a pick 'em. I think. I think that's a big loss in the way he plays. Watson. I think. Let's be honest. That line will be probably 2 by game time. I think. I mean, I don't know what to think of it. You miss a whole year. You come back. You play partial, and your first game is in a monsoon. Your second game is against the Steelers, who own the team anyway. So it's kind of, you don't want to overreact because of the 2 games he played, and then he's been out, missed the whole season, came back, played a couple games. So you don't want to. I get you though, Russ. You look at it, you're like, wow, what happened? But he hasn't played that much.
Yeah.
The 2 times you saw him this year, crazy weather. And against a defense that, not even defense, the team, Pittsburgh, just owns Cleveland as much as Cleveland owns Cincinnati.
Well, I mean, Jesse deserved better last night, and you deserve better. Pittsburgh scores 2 touchdowns on defense. That's hard to overcome, no matter what the yardage is, Anyway, Sean, what do you got coming up this week, and anything you want to discuss about?
I got Thursday NFL up, and I'm ready to fire again. And you mentioned that game. That's betting. That's how I'm basically like 500 this year in NFL college. I think I'm like 14-15 or 15-13. So along those lines of both, I haven't gotten over the hump. A couple tough breaks, And what am I gonna do? That's the way it is. I got the good numbers. You lose on 2 defensive touchdowns. I have a bad number here. Lose by a half point, win by half. One day at a time, Ross.
I can tell you what you're going to do. You're going to kick ass.
I'm not. Listen, even at the beginning of the season, we're like, I'm like, I don't get it. I just got to kind of grind it out. I don't.
That's it.
Don't get emotions. It is what it is. It works itself out every year for me.
Right now, it's just you're treading water, and all it takes is 1 week, like I had this week, to start the engine up, right? So you're fully capable. Jesse, as we all know, with his Septembers and his starts in college football and the NFL, watch out in the last week of September or last weekend of September. These 2 guys get it done, folks. You can find them at gamblersworld.net. Daily packages, monthly packages, weekly packages, college football, NFL annual packages. Look, those of you who chime in a couple times, I've seen where I wouldn't pay anybody for picks. You got to be a fool to pay these guys for picks. Well, you had been a fool not to buy my picks last week. I could tell you that, because I went 7-0 in college football. I went 5-0 in the NFL. I went 3-1 in Major League Baseball. That's 12-0 in football. That's 15-1 since last Tuesday in all sports. Who's the fool now is what I ask. So, folks, I'm not here to criticize you it's your prerogative whether you want to buy or not. But when people come out and make those kind of comments, look, this is what we do for a living, okay? This is what us 3 do, nothing else. Sports betting is our in facto livelihood. And we've been around for a long time, and there's reason why you survived this long. Longevity speaks volumes in this industry. We've seen a lot of people come and go. So all 3 of us, gamblersworld.net, 10-star top player, a 5-unit top play I had on the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday, 5-unit top play on Florida Gators plus 6.5 as they win outright over Tennessee. Doesn't get much better than that, folks. And this week, again, hopefully Sean doesn't get offended. I'm going to really kick ass even more this week. So, again, folks, it ain't bragging when you can back it up. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. There's no strings attached. There's no hidden agenda. You'll be privy to some of the best handicappers in the country, including us 3. And Guys like Paul Bovey and Chip Chirimbus and Kyle Hunter and Doug Upstone, all great handicappers right here on this channel. And if I'm going to ask you, if you're watching on your mobile device, you'll see a black subscribe button right underneath the video box. Just click on that. If you're watching on your PC, you'll see a WC logo standing for Winner's Circle. Just click on that and you'll be subscribed. Absolutely nothing to cost you. And I'm going to ask you to do one step further, is to go into your settings, your YouTube settings, that is, and hit the notification alert bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and you'll be alerted immediately upon any of our podcasts going up on our channel. Jesse, there's a like button right underneath us, and Sean's going to take his headphones off. I'm going to plug my ears.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button, folks. And like Doug said yesterday, smash it, tap it, or touch it. We don't care how you do it, but do something in that regard. And it's just a small token of appreciation for the work, preparedness, and effort that we put in to bring you a quality product on this channel. And most of all, like I'll continue to say every day, we want to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were the day before. Until the next time, for Jesse Shule and Sean Higgs and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless.